My name is Frans Johansson, and I was actually born in Sweden. I had a bit of an unusual upbringing in the sense of that my mother's, who is American, she's black and Cherokee actually, and my dad is Swedish. When I grew up in Sweden, I grew up as a mixed kid. And I think in a way that set the stage for me to look at the opportunities a little bit differently. Very quickly I sort of became immersed at this intersection of different cultures between the Sweden and the States and between black and white and so on. And when I was in Sweden, although this is not part of my business career, I wrote a book. I wrote a book about like dragons and princesses and so on and knights and I sold it in high school. So I thought I was going to be a writer. Then I went to college in the States. I ultimately ended up studying environmental science. And then I started a healthcare company out of undergrad that was based on research actually from my aunt at Johns Hopkins, which is a phenomenal university in Baltimore. It was classic company, starting her, we were living in her basement. The company was literally out of her garage. Learned a lot that way. We were able to make it into something interesting and somewhat successful. Then I went to business school at Harvard, and that was during the whole .com era. So around the millennial shift, I launched a software company and had that for a couple of years. And it was sort of completely the opposite of my first company. That was bootstrap. This was venture capital, fast growth. Literally, I was sitting in class at my business school with 30 employees. And it was just, things were just happening very, very quickly. But they also unfolded quickly. And at that point, I decided to sort of look at what was it that I had seen had sort of inspired the different ideas, the different innovations that I'd come across in my life. And this is where my interest in writing came back. I realized that there's this notion of an intersection. I literally came from, I woke up with a dream one morning, seeing sort of two light beams intersecting. And I said, I want to explore those. What happens when you combine ideas from different industries, when you combine ideas from different cultures, when you combine ideas from different divisions or functions? And I decided to research that, and I spent probably close to 3 years researching and writing about it. Moved to New York. Actually, I started writing it on an island off the coast of Sweden, Koster. I was there for 3 months, just myself writing it. My neighbor, I didn't know it at the time, but my neighbor was Stieg Larsson, who has written books that became a bit more famous around the girl with this or the girl with that. It really got me to bring the ideas and the experiences I had through my life into a singular thesis, into a singular approach. And that was that intersections are indeed powerful for innovation, both in coming up with ideas and executing them. And after that, I went, I'm speaking all over the world, but it also led to the foundation of the consulting firm that I have now called the Medici Group. And we work with Fortune companies and also NGOs and governments all over the world, all 6 continents. It's just very exciting, where we help these companies develop groundbreaking ideas and execute them, actually make them happen. So it's been a wild ride, and it's been fun. When I was at college, I started a science magazine, an interdisciplinary science magazine called The Catalyst. It's still around to this day. So this endeavor was an entrepreneurial endeavor. I hadn't really done something like that before. I always considered myself very creative. Writing a book when I was in high school was a part of that. But this was sort of involving a financial element to that creativity that was a little bit different. And it made me interested. And so that was why we started this company out of undergrad. I wanted to explore this. But even with this company, I was pretty sure I was going to do a PhD in marine biology. And in fact, I applied for that. And here, talk about randomness. In this application, I needed 3 recommendations. And one of the recommenders forgot to send in his recommendation. I'm not going to mention who it is, but one of them did. Which meant that my application was put on a list, a waiting list. I wasn't actually informed of this until it was too late. And between that and the year that followed, I realized I did not want to do a PhD in marine biology, and I went to get an MBA at Harvard Business School. who knows what would have happened if I hadn't gone one way or compared to the other. That said, once I got to business school, I remember something my dad told me, and he said, if you're going to work extremely hard, if you're going to work your ass off, do it for yourself. Like, it's okay to work for other people, of course, but not if you're going to kill yourself. And he said, you, talking to me, always go all in. So whatever it is that you do, you just do it 100%. So if you're going to do that, maybe you should think about doing it for yourself. That stayed with me. And so I think after that, it became pretty obvious that I wanted to keep starting companies and be involved in that. At its simplest, the click moment is really the title of my new book. And what it does is it highlights a particular interesting myth about success. The myth is that success can be planned for, analyzed, and strategized. And if you just think about it hard enough, if you just run the numbers more vigorously, if you just plot it out, you can essentially almost guarantee yourself success. That is the heart of it. It comes down to the strategy. I say that is wrong. Success has far more to do with serendipity. It has far more to do with randomness. It has far more to do with the unexpected than we think or even want to acknowledge. And so a click moment is an unexpected moment. It's a serendipitous moment, a random moment where something happened that took you in either, in a particular direction that you never expected, but that was the direction that was successful. And almost every single story around success discards that fact. Let me give you a couple examples, just right off the bat. Let's take a company like YouTube. At its simplest, the YouTube seems like a super obvious idea. You upload videos and you view them. So there are any number of people in Silicon Valley that was just smashing their heads against the wall because they said, why didn't I think of this? I mean, this is just brilliant. And so we might then think that the founders were just brilliant. Except, even the founders didn't know what YouTube was all about. YouTube started as a dating site, right? And the whole idea was to upload a video of yourself and then see if people could vote whether they want to date you or not. And that is an awful idea. Okay, it's just really bad. But then one night, two of the founders went to dinner, and they filmed this dinner, and they said, where are we going to upload this? Like, we would like others to view it. No easy thing to do at that time. And the third founder was trying to find a video of Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunction at Super Bowl when she accidentally displayed a piece of her anatomy. And he couldn't find the video very easily. When they all met up, they said, well, you want to upload videos, I want to view videos, our software does that, let's do that. 18 months later, it sold for $1.65 billion to Google. Those are moments, and they actually affect what I want to illustrate. What I illustrate in that book is that they impact small companies and they impact large companies, established companies, the Microsofts of the world, the leading companies. Even like 10 years into their history, it impacts how success plays out. The basic idea of success is that if you just work very, very hard and if you're very, very smart and you know what you're doing, you will achieve success. And I actually say in the book that there are certain areas of life where that is true. So for instance, in tennis or golf or chess, where the rules never change, that's true. Serena Williams is extremely successful, not because of a fluke or random chance. She made it through what you essentially can call 10,000 hours of practice. But it's also obvious that there are many instances where this is not true. So you have Richard Branson, who starts an airline and makes it into success, having essentially 0 hours of practice running an airline. Now, why is that? Nokia illustrates a great case for why that is. Nokia obviously has taken a downturn for the worse. But in 2006, 2007, Nokia was the #1 brand in Europe. I mean, that's only sort of 5-6 years ago. It's just remarkable. They were #5 brand worldwide. They were the largest mobile phone company by any metric, revenue, margin, earnings, etc. You just, no matter how you look at it, and they were doing everything right. Like Forbes, economists, case studies, what Nokia was doing right. And in less time than it takes somebody to earn a law degree in the United States, they were knocked off their porch. And Apple introduced the iPhone, and so we know the story. This set in motion a sequence of events that pushed the traditional phone manufacturers into a corner. Because now, all of a sudden, Google could introduce Android. And what's stunning about this is if you asked the Nokia executive in 2006, who do you think Apple's greatest competitor in the mobile phone space is going to be 3 years from now? And if you told them actually it's going to be Google, they would have just laughed at you because neither Apple nor Google even had a phone. It's amazing if you think about it. Stephen Elop had this memo called the Burning Platform Memo, and he says in it, we missed key trends. But what that statement implies is that you can use key trends to your predictable advantage. But is that true? First of all, who else missed these trends? If you look at every single analyst, they all predicted that the iPhone would fail, or at the very least not have an impact on the market. Certainly not impact Nokia. So if everyone on planet Earth thought that was the case, who is supposed to have figured this out then? This notion essentially sets the stage for the idea that if the world changes in ways that are, if we can't use trends to predict success, the success is effectively random. It is effectively serendipitous. It is effectively unexpected. And we know that's true for Nokia's own history. You just have to go back, 30 years. What was Nokia's sort of growth market then? It wasn't phones. That was just beginning to start out. And now somehow phones define the entire company. It wasn't always so. Well, what's the way out of it? So Angry Birds illustrates a way out of it. Once again, Angry Birds has success, and people now look at their brilliance. Overnight success. They know game design cold. They know how to market it better than anybody else. Within a year, the company became worth over $1 billion. Except if they were so smart, why did they wait 8 years to create Angry Birds? Why didn't they create Angry Birds year 1 or 2 or say 3? Why did they have to go through 51 other games to create Angry Birds, which was their 52nd game? I can guarantee you that anybody watching this video would have a great shot of success if they tried something 52 times. Angry Birds takes statistical advantage of randomness. They know that essentially you're not sure what's going to work or not work. And so you have to keep trying. That said, like any company that eventually reaches success, I'm going to guess that they are beginning to think that they actually do know what drives success. So there's now, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, and so maybe I shouldn't go into it, but this is certainly true for many other companies that I've examined. Once they've sort of hit it out of the park, they build an entire organization around that, around the predictive trends. And what I'm claiming is that that's essentially what Nokia did. You're setting yourself up to be greatly disappointed at some point. And there's some companies that try to evade it. Amazon is a great example of it. Google is another great example. Amazon in particular, many people don't know that a major business of Amazon is hosting. Netflix in this country, I don't know if it exists in Finland yet, but it accounts for, it just launched or something like that, right? Yeah. So Netflix accounts for, what, 20% of the internet traffic in this country? All that internet traffic runs on Amazon servers. It's stunning. And if you ask the people at Amazon, did they know this when they started? No. Was this part of their strategic plan when they started? No. But they placed a bet, it worked out. The term the Medici effect comes from the Medici family who ruled the city of Florence in Italy about 500 years ago. And what the Medici family did was, well, they killed people and they did that. So there was always that. But aside from that, they also sponsored highly creative individuals from lots of separate disciplines. So you had architects and sculptors and painters and philosophers from all over Europe. And they brought them, attracted them to the city of Florence. And there they were able to work across the different disciplines, across the different cultures, and ignite what became one of the most creative eras in Europe's history, the Renaissance. And my point is that that process is relevant whether you talk about a city, whether you talk about a company, or whether you talk about a team. And so the idea of the Medici effect is that you step into an intersection of different disciplines and cultures and industries, and through those connections, you make great new ideas. And the examples of this are everywhere. So once you start looking at innovation through this lens, you start seeing how the toughest way to come up with a great new idea is to go to everybody who knows everything, the experts. And the insights come when you can take your knowledge, your resources, and intersect it with something that is different, that comes in at an angle. And so, for instance, one of my favorite examples from that book, The Medici Effect, is, I opened the book with it, is, or it's in the introduction, is you have this architect in Zimbabwe who receives a challenge one day to build the largest building in Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe. But this building has to contain no air conditioning. And so, you know, okay, how do you do that? It's a challenge. But he manages to do it by looking at how termites build their mounds on the African savanna. And by employing techniques that the termites use, he incorporates that into the design of the building, and he's now able to create a building with a stated temperature of about 20, 21 degrees with no air conditioning. And it uses about 90% less energy than any other building around it. So that's what that book is about. And it looks at how do you come up with those ideas, and then how do you execute those ideas. So when I got the question of whether or not the Medici effect is applicable to any industry, I initially said yes, but I wasn't sure what I was talking about. I now say yes, and I am sure what I'm talking about, okay? Because with my firm, I worked across basically every industry. And so when we help them come up with potentially groundbreaking ideas, we do so by creating highly diverse teams. Now one can sort of discuss, you know, what is the level of diversity? Okay, yeah, so you're a biotech company and you're looking at molecular combinations or something like that. And you're like, well, it would bring in a clown help. Okay, well, okay, so maybe there's a limit to it. But my experience is that the intuition of most people is to include far less diversity than they should. And that cuts across industries and divisions. It cuts across culture and gender. It cuts across functions, age. Anything that gives you a different perspective on a particular opportunity or challenge is what you're looking for to introduce. And that is true across all industries. So here's what I'm looking forward to talking to the audience about. I want to talk about how diversity drives innovation. I want to talk about how if you can bring together people from different backgrounds and leverage those differences, not just bring them together, but leverage them, how you have a far better chance of breaking new ground. And I want to show all of you how that is played out, specifically, case after case, in very, very specific cases. I also want to show how unexpected and unpredictable innovation is. We really want to nail it. And this is particularly true for Finns and Swedes. Jag är svensk, okay? Jag arbetar mycket I Sverige. All right? So this plays out there as well. I want to show very convincingly the power of encouraging the serendipitous and the random. And then finally, the third part I want to show is the extreme focus that we need to have on execution today. Execution and how that matters, and how you think differently about executing innovative ideas compared to more straightforward ideas. Those are the three things. Hej, jag heter Frans Johansson och jag ser fram emot att träffa er i januari 2014 på ICE Live Business Forum.